And welcome, everybody, to your Nooner with me, Dave LaMont, which is actually recorded just a few hours ago. I don't know how many of you ever watch this live. I know more people probably catch the rerun that is available all the time. But if unfortunately, I bollocksed up my schedule again, and I was not able to do a live show. But this is recorded in a secret bunker with green around me. A lot to talk about. I wanted to talk about the trip last week to Cincinnati for that Bengals-Packers game. With TJ was playing, and we hung out with our son in Georgetown, Kentucky, who's a student at Georgetown College, basketball player. A lot to talk about there. I think we probably should start with the negative stuff first and get that out of the way. And that's the Gruden and now Adam Schefter situation. I'll start with Gruden because, look, it's pretty much it's over. The situation is over as far as he's concerned. Now, there's going to be I don't think the NFL will ever release much, if anything, unless they leak stuff out about these emails, the hundreds of thousands of emails. And everybody is reporting the same thing, that the main target of this was Washington football owner Daniel Snyder, who is clearly not what you would call a high-standing person. You know, we have a thing in this country where we tend to worship the rich, whether they deserve it or not. There are definitely rich people who do great things with their money, and then there are plenty who don't, and who achieve success, however they achieve it, is their business, but they don't cover themselves in moral glory, shall we say. And it appears that Dan Snyder is one of them. And it appears that the league is going to go out of its way to protect one of its own, because the league isn't run by Roger Goodell. It's run by the owners, who was they're Roger Goodell's boss. Imagine that situation. You're supposed to be the all-powerful one, making, God, $40 million a year, which is absurd. And yet you're basically, to borrow the expression that Mel Brooks had in History of the World Part 1, the piss boy. That's what he is, okay? To the owners, that's what he is. So they'll protect their own. John Gruden deserved everything he's gotten, all of the scorn, all of the lost opportunities, the loss, his name being taken down in Tampa, all of the ridicule. He deserves all of it. But he is sure as hell not the only one. But they sacrificed him to try to protect others. Now, I have zero. If you came here thinking I was going to somehow find a way to defend Gruden as a victim of cancel culture, you just walk away now, because that's not going to happen. They should have crap canned him when the first group of comments came out. And there are some people rightfully pointing out, when he said something about the head of the players union, he actually got some people to defend him. But then the rest of it came out, and they couldn't do anything about it. And I actually thought to myself after a couple of days, he actually coached a game. I thought, is he going to survive this somehow? Well, you know the answer now. I mean, he hit a grand slam and insulting virtually every group you can think of. Women, gay men or women, black men or women. He went after everybody. Good job, John. You are who we thought you were, to borrow and rephrase the late Dennis Green's comment. So I'm sorry if you think somehow John got canceled. No, he was held accountable. Now, I think, is there a difference? Yeah, I think there is. And in this case, I don't know how you would see it any other way. I just don't. Yeah, it was 10 years ago. People change, they do. Don't know if he did. And it doesn't matter. And the people like Mike Tirico and Tony Dungy, who I would believe sincerely defended him. Boy, Dungy, to his credit, I haven't heard anything from Tirico. Dungy tried to explain himself. At least he gave it a shot. But still, there's not any excuse for this. But here's the thing. Gruden isn't the only one. You know that. I know that. We all know that. And there's probably a few people sweating bullets over emails that they sent that the NFL is looking into. But are we ever going to find out the gist of the Snyder stuff? I would be shocked. Someone's going to literally have to be a whistleblower on the NFL, much like the woman who was the Facebook whistleblower, and say, look, here's what's really going on. You guys need to notice this Dan Snyder is is a bad guy, and here's why. We already know the Washington football team had an incredibly misogynistic and sexist culture to it, the way they treated their cheer team. You know that their radio announcer, right before the season a couple of years ago, abruptly resigned, and he was implicated right after his resignation, and he's just disappeared because he was in on some of this. Bruce Allen, who was an executive in Washington, who was in on some of this, he's been gone now for a couple of seasons. So there's a bad, and this starts at the top. If you can't say, "Oh, I didn't know this was going on," no, you can't say that. Of course, he might have been participating in some of this. Times are changing. A lot of people don't care for the times are changing. Sometimes, yes, it does go overboard. But in this case, the board was right, and Gruden needed to be gone. Now, out of this came another bit of a controversy. Adam Schefter had written an email to Bruce Allen when Allen was running Washington about, please check this and make any changes. Now, obviously, this meant that Bruce Allen was a big source of Adam Schefter. Guys like Adam Schefter and Jay Glazer and all the insiders at all the different sports have to have connections with both athletes, coaches, not both, but all the athletes, coaches, ownership, management that they can get their hands on. Because that's how they get their scoops. That's how they get their jobs. That's how they get their checks. So being chummy with somebody is probably a good thing. This is how things get broken. You want to know how this happens? You just build a relationship with someone and use them as a source. And generally, it's a confidential source. It has to be. You have to protect your sources because there's stuff way more serious than a players lockout that goes on in Washington and in places around the world at a high political level where big time stuff that really matters is protected or released under the protection of that source because things could happen to that source. If that person's name comes out, he or she could be in grave danger, to be killed. All right? No one's going to kill Bruce Allen if he is revealed as a source in a story. But somebody who says something about the government or about a particular individual or maybe a dictator overseas puts his or her life in danger. So that's why you keep your sources confidential, because you'll need them again. You don't screw them over. And a reporter has to make a decision, and that reporter has to go, I got a big story. I need to confirm it. Maybe I'd even confirm the person's name's involved. Maybe it is even a complimentary person. It's not an article. It's a big, slobbering, wonderful job about how great this person is, but I got to confirm it with them. And as a reporter, you do that. Schefter, maybe he was kidding, but he was pretty obsequious. In other words, butt kissing toward Allen. It got him some hot water, and it should have. You can say, hey, Bruce, I've got a few things about the lockout. Can you give me a yes or no? Is this accurate? What I'm about to publish at 6 a.m, is this accurate? And if it isn't, can you tell me what's wrong? Now, that means he's trusting his source to be honest with him and say, instead of giving him spin or lies, he can say, yeah, that's right. Or no, you missed this, so it should read that, not this. That exchange is 100% normal. And by the way, this is, again, should not be a shock to any of you. It was funny how some people have reacted to this. Maybe because I'm in the business, I'm used to doing, I've done it myself, not very often, but I have. Any reporter who's good at their job is going to develop sources over time, whether they're a crime reporter or maybe the police chief in their city is their source. Or they've got a detective who tips them off. Hey, look, I'm working on a case and it's going to break, but we're going to make an arrest in the such and such case. Happens every day. There's still some good old-fashioned journalism being practiced despite the way things have taken a turn for the worse in this profession. So we learned, if you didn't know, how this stuff gets done. Schefter's mistake, calling him Mr. Editor and making it look like he was slanting the story in favor of management. And being a kowtow, shining the shoes of Bruce Allen. Whether that hurts Schefter in the long run, it might cost him a few sources. And maybe some of the players that he relies on are going to turn their backs on him. I don't know. ESPN, I don't know if they're in a position where they can do anything about this. I don't think you just all of a sudden fire him. I am quite sure he has been spoken to privately by whomever his coordinating producer, boss, man or woman is, because it's embarrassing for the network, and nobody wants to be embarrassed. It wouldn't matter if he worked for CBS or Fox or NBC. No one wants to be embarrassed. So they've had a talk, sure as I'm sitting here. But I don't think they should fire him. If you were even thinking about that, I wouldn't even necessarily suspend him. He got shown for the way things work. Some people are surprised by that, and that we move on. Gruden punished, absolutely. Schefter, probably not. I wouldn't do it. I'd have a nice talk with him about how he does his job, and it's all private. But I don't see what the big sin is. I know what you're thinking. Well, he kissed the guy's butt. I know. But I don't think you throw him in the trash for that. But, because I think this will affect him in some way. It should affect him. It should make him change the way he does things from time to time. That should happen. Whether it does or not, hey, I don't know the guy. But this is how journalism works. You use sources. And it drives people nuts. So, well, what's your source, man? Hey, guess what? People go to jail to protect that source. So I'll defend a journalist who protects a source. That's how you do it. If you don't like that, that's okay. But I'm just letting you know that's how this works. All right. Now, the fun stuff. Trip to Cincinnati. Why am I excited about Cincinnati, you ask? I've been there many times. My wife is from there. We have family there. And TJ was there with the Green Bay Packers, and probably not going to be able to make it to Green Bay this year to see a game. So with our son, one of our sons in Kentucky, which is this close to Cincinnati, we got to visit him at Georgetown College, where he is a basketball player. And we got to see the Bengals-Packers game, which was easily the goofiest, maybe the goofiest sporting event I've ever been to. 5 field goals. All of them could have. By the way, none of this happens if Mason Crosby doesn't miss an extra point early in the game. 3 of these were doinks, 2 in a row by the Bengals kicker, Evan McPherson, who at one point celebrated a kick that was no good. I didn't see that. Those kicks were coming. Some of them were coming at us. I'm in a corner end zone, so I'm not like right behind a goalpost. And there's video of the kid jumping up and down and like patting the helmet of his holder. And then you can see in the distance of the video, a Green Bay player going like this, and he stops celebrating, looks around like, what do you, it what? I felt badly for him. I felt badly for both kickers. Finally, Mason Crosby, who had made 24 straight field goals until he missed, I think it was 30 in that game. 4th down and about that left. What do? You're running out of time. There's about 3 minutes to go in the overtime. The game will end in a tie if nobody scores. It's 22-22. You're at the 31-yard line of Cincinnati. Again, that's about all you had to go. Your kickers missed 3 in a row and an extra point. Do you trust him to win the game, realizing you're giving the Bengals the ball back with decent field position, with a chance to go down, and they can try a field goal or maybe just go for 6? Now, I'm sitting there we had 7 seats in that game, and I'm sitting with my best friend, he and I going, we're not kicking this. We're going to go for it. We're an NFL team, and we have that little distance to go, and Aaron Rodgers is our quarterback. Come up with something. They kicked it, and they made it. Now, I understand the reasoning behind it is that if you went for it and missed, you didn't get it, you don't get the ball back unless they turn it over again. So, excuse me. So I understand that end of it. But at the same time, if you blow another field goal, you're giving them the ball back in the same place. But it worked. Somehow. Again, never seen a game like that and never will again. Something else about it. It was a fun experience all the way around. Again, tons of Packer fans because Packers, Steelers, Bills are probably, to me, top 3 fan bases in the league. You're welcome to your own opinion on that. You don't have to agree. It's not a serious topic. It's just my view because they're everywhere. I think there are probably Packers and Steelers bars in all 50 states. I bet if I went to Honolulu to watch a game, excuse me, at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning for a 1 o'clock Eastern time kickoff, I could find a Packers bar in Honolulu or a Steelers bar. But if I looked it up right now, I could. I admire that. So lots of green and gold. Now, the Bengals brought plenty of fans. They have reason to be optimistic. I really like Joe Burrow. I like their offense. The line has to improve, and the defense needs to get a little better. But the Bengals may be starting to turn a corner behind Burrow if he doesn't get killed, which damn near happened in that game. And that was on him running and not sliding. The next time he ran, he slid. So the experience is very positive. The other thing I took away, this is my second time seeing Aaron Rodgers live. Now, the first time was that disastrous loss to New Orleans and Jacksonville. It was sad, and it was awful. Might be the only time I ever see this guy. Well, it wasn't. I knew I was going to see him again, but this is just terrible. So I was eager to see him again. And sure enough, he gets off to about the same start at the beginning of the game. I'm like, come on now, is it me? Until he got hot. And then I got the full Aaron Rodgers experience. And here's what I love about Aaron Rodgers. And there have been plenty of other quarterbacks with this incredible cocky attitude. And I mean cocky here in a positive way. If you look on it, look back at it, look back at the great quarterbacks of our time or even before your time. I'm going back to the Unitises and guys like that. Unitas wasn't outwardly cocky, but he played cocky. He played cocky. Joe Montana played cocky. Their thought was Dan Fouts, Staubach, all those guys, the true greats, had such confidence in their own ability that they don't care who you are. They don't care where you are. They don't care what city you play in. They think they're better. And that leads them to take chances and to play with a certain attitude that other people don't play with. Marino, who once famously said, you can't beat a perfect throw. That was the Marino philosophy summed up in a sentence. His thought was, I don't care how small the window is, I'll get it in there. And most of the time he did. Well, Aaron Rodgers plays with that same kind of cockiness, and I like it. I want my quarterback to be like that. You don't have to be that way away from the field, but you need to be on the field. And he's got that, man. And it was fun. And he got going. It was fun. So the fans were great. There were no problems in the stands. Nobody getting so drunk they started yelling and screaming at other people for wearing a different shirt or any of that other crap. At least I didn't see it. I mean, if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm horribly disappointed in the outcome of the game. But it was a good time had by all. So, give me a cocky quarterback. Is Tua Tagovailoa a cocky quarterback? I guess we're going to find out again as he's back from yet another injury. And for heaven's sakes, Dolphins, if you don't beat Jacksonville, just buy an apartment building in London and stay there. I mean, you talk about a team in utter disarray in Jacksonville. I can't even imagine how poisonous that locker room must be, or what happens when Urban Meyer tries to speak to guys. So this is an opportunity to step on somebody who's down. And in the pros, that's what you have to do. Miami, North Carolina, for the Hurricanes this weekend, doesn't quite have the cachet that it did last year. Carolina is, unfortunately, a bit overrated. They've had some bad losses. So this is a season maker for both. If Miami loses again, I'm not even sure Manny Diaz survives the season, even though I have an example for you about patience. And if North Carolina loses, I don't expect either team to lose this game. They're supposed to both be better than they are. Last year's embarrassment, I don't think it's going to happen again, where Miami gave up about 1,000 yards of offense and got blowed out. And that's the game that erased any gains that's the game that erased any gains. It looks like I'm in an operating room, doesn't it? That Manny Diaz made last year. Any kind of positivity was washed away by that. And at that point, I think he lost Hurricane fans for good. I really do. Had they beaten Alabama this year, which we know wasn't going to happen, but had they done that, maybe people would have forgiven him for North Carolina, but people haven't forgiven him for North Carolina. And a win over that will help, but there are some people who are just lost with him. Now, let me point out, here's the problem. How many coaches has Miami had since Butch Davis made the biggest mistake of his life and left? All right, so we've had Larry Coker, Randy Shannon, Al Golden, Mark Richt, and now Manny Diaz. That's 5 coaches in what? How many years? 15? That's a lousy track record. 15 or, well, maybe I'm a little off. But yeah, counting when Larry got fired, yeah. That's not a commitment to patience. Let me offer you, as another exhibit, for your consideration, Kentucky, who rode through Mark Stoops getting off to a poor start. They did not get going. For 3 or 4 years, they did not get going. But they're going now. They've had some good teams. They've beaten Florida twice in the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years, after never beating them over 3. They're undefeated this year. They dog stomped LSU last week. And I know some gambling experts who thought the LSU was not only going to win, but cover, but win. And they hung with him, and now they're getting dividends out of it. He's built something there. They've upgraded their facilities massively. That stadium they have is beautiful. Their football facility, beautiful. So by being patient and sticking with whom they thought they had the right guy, they allowed him to go through wins and losses and more losses that other coaches would have been in trouble for. And it's paying off. If you want to assure yourself of losing, keep changing coaches every couple of years or 3 years. Just keep doing it. Because every time you fire a guy and bring somebody in, it's a restart for your program. It is. Now, you can argue whether the right decision was made. At the moment, there's not a lot of evidence to say it was. But if you can Manny Diaz after this year, you're hitting the restart button again, and you're giving it whoever takes the job very little time to fix it the way that he wants it to be. One day they will do this, and they will be patient, and they will stop listening to internet geniuses who know more than they do, and do it the right way and be patient. And maybe they'll even land on somebody who can turn things around quickly. But until you have a little bit of patience, think just constant turnover leads to constant losing. So I'm not saying that Manny's the greatest coach or you keep him if they lose or whatever. I understand. I think he's a dead man walking. But this is not helping the Hurricanes. Okay? Change upon change upon change upon change. New philosophy, new philosophy, new philosophy, new this, recruit this way, recruit that way. Oops, we have to do it all over again. It's not good business. It is a lousy model for winning in sports. And with that, thank you for watching. I appreciate you all very much, and I'll see you next week. Have a terrific